What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Inside Inter Miami, the Miami Herald show about all things Inter Miami. I'm Deputy Sports Editor Andre Fernandez, joined as always by our Inter Miami beat writer Michelle Kaufman. Michelle, no mate this time because I'm
No,
worried
Mate.
I'm worried
No.
we jinxed them. I mean, they're on this roll. We're going to talk a little bit about both games last week, which regrettably for Inter Miami ended in draws. Not what you wanted to see
Boo.
necessarily. Right.
Yeah.
Picked up a
Oh,
point here, a point there, but not what
point
you wanted to
here,
see for
point
this team.
there. No. No, especially against those two teams. I mean, yes, they were on the road, but they were playing Atlanta and NYCFC. Those were two teams that they were expected to beat. And we can go through each game, but I mean, the Atlanta game, okay, they didn't start any of the start. Only three regular starters started in that game. So eight players were replacements basically for various reasons. None of the big four, none of the Mount Rushmore Beatles started in that game. Busquets was out serving a suspension. The other three were rested. They didn't come in until late in the game. But still, that's a game that they were winning. They could have won, and they ended up settling for a tie. And, that's a game that they should have won. There was a big crowd, yes, but that's a game that they were expecting to get 3 points. Then they go to NYC. And again, that's a game that on paper, they should have beaten that team. They started with everybody except Busquets. Everybody was there. There were no excuses. And oh well, there was a little excuse. Small field, narrow field. Yes, that always does favor New York City, but still, it was a game that Miami should have won. Again, they end up going ahead with a goal by Campana, who, by the way, has scored in both games. Coming and again, they give up a goal basically in the final play of the game in the 95th minute. Give up the tying goal. Afterward, Tata is asked what was the team missing. He said they were missing a good referee, that the
Hmm.
game was missing a good referee. That was his answer. Uh, you know, I respect that. Yes, there were a million yellow cards in that game, but for both teams, honestly, I think one of his biggest complaints was that on that final corner kick, if you watch the replay over and over, which I did, on the final corner kick that led to that final score for New York, Yannick Bright gets shoved. Really, very clearly, it was blatant inside the box. So a guy shoves him. He falls to the ground. They don't call anything. If they call that a foul, that game is over and New York doesn't win. Miami comes out with a 1-0 victory and they get the 3 points. So, I don't know. How did you see it?
Yeah, it's one of those things again that you see that sometimes in international play too, like a blatant. You're sitting there, you're kind of reacting the same as the players. You're like, how do you miss this? But it does happen. It does happen. Unfortunately, I mean, it cost them 2 points. Regrettable right now. We're going to look at the Supporter Shield standings in this show. They're still ahead by a pretty decent margin. They lost a little bit of ground, but still lead Cincinnati by 8 points in the Eastern Conference right now. They still lead the LA Galaxy by 6 points. So it's still about a two-match swing there that would have to take for them to blow the lead at this point. And as Inter Miami stands with 4 matches to go in the season, a possible 12 points. We're going to talk about that and them chasing some MLS history, as you wrote, Michelle, looking for that points record.
Yeah, yeah. Well, going back, I want to go back for a minute to the New York game. There were a lot of yellows. In fact, for the next game, Noah Allen is out and Redondo is out. So once again, they're
Yeah.
going to have players out for yellow card accumulation. Um, and Tata's son even got thrown out of the game. Tata's son is an assistant coach, Gerardo Martino Jr. He was thrown out with a red card. Uh, so, this is a game that, regardless of the refs, I hear what Tata's saying. I do agree that on that last play, that should have been called. Had it been called, they would have won the game. Okay. They would have won 1-0. That said, with the lineup that they had out there, with Messi, with Suarez, with Alba, with everybody else that was starting in that game and playing in that game, they should have not been in a position where they have to rely on a non-call, to win the game. Basically, for much of the game, they didn't produce many scoring chances. They only had, I think, 6 shots the entire game. New York City had, I believe, 17 or so. New York City had created a lot more shots than they did. Yes, that's their home field. Yes, they're used to the narrow, small field. It's Yankee Stadium. It's a baseball stadium. La, la, la. Excuses, excuses. Bottom line, this is Inter Miami. They're in first place. They've got the best player in the world, Lionel Messi. They've got, Luis
Two
Suarez
of the best,
already
four
out.
of the best.
Yeah. Yeah, 4 of the best. Well, Boosie wasn't there. He was not there.
Boys wasn't there, but typically in this case, 3 of the best.
Yeah, 3 of the best players in the, 3 of the best players in recent memory who played for Barcelona are playing on the field against a New York City team that was winless over 8 games. They had not won a game in 8 games, and they're playing against a first place team with Messi, with Suarez, with Alba, and they come out tying that game. That's a result that was very unsatisfying to the Inter Miami fan base and to Inter Miami players and coaches, I'm sure. And yes, they can talk about the ref, but at the end of the day, if you have to rely on the ref to win a game over a team that hasn't won the last 8 games, I think there were more issues there in that game than just that.
Yeah, and that's the, I guess you want to say maybe the worrisome part is how this team can look spectacular for a couple matches, but then can have these hiccups like this, even at full strength. When the playoffs come around, you don't want to have one of those hiccup games. I mean, I don't know. I'm still very curious to see how all this talent is going to work when it's pressure packed and very little margin for error in the postseason. How are they going to respond? You would assume they're going to respond with all the experience they've had playing matches like this all their careers. But let's see how it all meshes in the postseason as we draw closer. Like I said before, 4 matches to go to pad that lead, but then it gets serious.
They've only lost 1 game when Messi plays.
Right.
So, they've only lost a couple of games when he doesn't play either. They really haven't had very many losses this year. So, they pick up ties. Ties are not really satisfactory to this team at this point, but they're still, they built up enough of a cushion, which is why that was so important. They had to build up a cushion in order to, to have space to make some mistakes, to have some hiccups, to get some ties in games they should have had wins. And now they have that. I mean, they are now, like you mentioned, they have 64 points with 4 games to go. Maximum 76 points. They could get a maximum of 76. All they need is 72. They need 72 points. 8 is the magic number. 8 is the magic number. If they get 8 points over the next 4 games, nobody can catch them. Nobody can catch them. The Crew, Columbus Crew, their maximum they could get if they win the rest of their games, which they have 5 games to go. But if they win all 5 and they get 15 points, the maximum they can get is 71 points. So if Inter Miami gets above 71 points, they win Supporter Shield. Period. Punto y aparte. Okay?
Right.
Punto y aparte. If they get 72 points, nobody can catch them. Not the Galaxy, not Cincinnati, not the Crew. The Crew is the one who could get 71. The LA Galaxy can only get 67. The Cincinnati can get 68. And the Crew can get 71, according to my math. I was not a math major, but I looked, I did it again and again on my calculator. And if they get 72 points, which means 8 more points over
Right.
4 games, they have the best record in the league. And they will then have home field advantage for every round, including the final where they get to the final, which would be huge.
Right. So basically 3 more wins to really make it, to really guarantee it, or a combo of maybe 2 wins and 2 draws would get it done at this point, is what we're saying.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. They don't want to lose,
Right.
they don't want to lose, and you don't want to start cutting it close to where you're starting to do math at the end. This is a team that should not have to
Right.
do math. They built up a really big cushion. The
Right.
cushion's gotten a little bit smaller. The cushion's gotten a tiny bit smaller, but still, getting 8 points over 4 games, I don't think that's too much to ask from this team with this lineup.
Right.
And I will say, Messi, of course, he's the greatest player of all time, and he's going to create offense. And that's what he's supposed to do. That's why I'm saying this last game, was particularly disappointing against New York, because the Atlanta game, you could say, well, Messi didn't come in until the 60th minute, so he only played 30 minutes, whatever. This game, he started. He was out there with Suarez. They did not create enough chances, and that is what's worrisome, because on the defensive side, you do lose something when you have Suarez and Messi up there, up top. You're not going to have guys that are going to be running back and sprinting back and forth. They're 37 years old. Yes, they're amazing. Yes, they're legends. Yes, they create goals, but there's also a little bit of a liability defensively. And so, that being the case, they really do need to create, and they really do need to score. And so, this next game, I'm sure they're going to be extremely motivated to create and to score goals, which they did against Philadelphia. If you recall, on Messi's first game back, they look great. It's like, oh, he's back. It's like he never left. Remember, we talked about it. We drank mate in his honor. No mate today, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to drink some mate when there's something to celebrate, when it's kind of a big
Special
Messi
occasions.
performance, special occasions. This last week, 2 ties with this team. Meh, nah, not really a special occasion, just a ho-hum, 2 ties, ho-hum occasion. So going forward, they need to drink some more mate, maybe drink a little more mate before this next game. The next game will be at home against Charlotte, and that is, once again, a game that they should win. Charlotte is not one of the teams that's at the very top. This is not Columbus Crew. This is not Cincinnati. This is a team that on paper, once again, they should beat. They're going to be home. They're going to have, I'm assuming Busquets will be back. They didn't say what the personal reason was. I know that his wife is expecting a baby. Well, a wife, not exactly. His longtime girlfriend is expecting a baby, and they got engaged. Late last week, they got engaged.
Fiance.
This is all according to social media. This is all social media, because this is where we get our news sometimes, because the team just says personal matter and don't explain why. So we have to just go to social media and try to put puzzle pieces together. His wife is very pregnant, or I keep saying wife. His longtime girlfriend is very pregnant. They got engaged last week.
Fiance.
So fiance. His fiance. Very pregnant. They're expecting a baby very soon. That may have been the reason that he didn't travel. I don't know. It's a personal matter they didn't want us to report. So we're just guessing here. But I'm assuming that he will be back this week for the Charlotte game. And so they'll have all 4 of the Beatles will be back, plus the rest of the team minus Noah Allen and Fede Redondo. Also, one bit of positive news, too, is that Matias Rojas, who's been out for a bit with an ankle injury, Tata had indicated that he would be returning to practice this week full, and he might be available to return to the team on Saturday.
All right. Well, but how about that Leo Campana? Milestone in terms of goals, as he's been providing that offense, him and Ruiz in the Atlanta game. And, this kid really has really stepped in. When we talk about all the, we talk about the big 4 and all of that. But again, Leo Campana, the mainstay there. Good, great to see him get to that point.
Absolutely. Leo Campana he's really a class individual, because let's look at his career. He came in here very excited to kind of be the top dog, the number 9, the center forward. That's what he does. And he's done amazing. He's the leading scorer in club history. Took him 91 games, but he did get there. He finally passed Gonzalo Higuain. But this is a player who initially, Gonzalo Higuain comes, he has to take a back seat to Gonzalo Higuain. Then Gonzalo leaves, they bring in Joseph Martinez. Joseph Martinez, who had played for Tata in Atlanta, the Venezuelan national team player. He comes in, all of a sudden, Leo Campana is behind. Joseph Martinez has to take a back seat. Joseph Martinez leaves. Oh, maybe he'll finally get his chance to shine. Nope. Here comes El Pistolero. How are you going to start ahead of El Pistolero? This guy is, an amazing scorer, an amazing finisher, and happens to be Lionel Messi's best friend. So you're definitely not going to be starting ahead of him. So he again has to take a back seat. He's had opportunities to go other places, to be a starter. He wanted to stay here. He loves Miami. He lives in Key Biscayne. He loves it here. His family's here. And this is where he wants to be. And he wants to learn. He said all along that he wants to learn from these top players. So he's just been the consummate teammate. He has always had just such a good attitude and says, look, whenever I understand the guy starting ahead of me is Luis Suarez, I understand that. But as soon as I do get an opportunity, I'm going to make the best of it. And he has. And he has. Every time he gets an opportunity, he makes the best of it. And the last 2 games are perfect examples. He got to start against Atlanta because the other guys rested, and he scored and made the best of his opportunity. And then in this game, once again, he gets a chance to come in off the bench and he scores once again. So you got to give it up for him. He now has 30 goals, which is the most that any player has ever had in Inter Miami history.
Tremendous contributions that he's had, so far this, and hopefully to see that continue into the playoffs. But Michelle, let's look a little bit at this next game and the rest of the season, really, because I know we're talking about magic number. Interesting looking to take a peek beyond Charlotte in the next game. Speaking of that Columbus crew on the road, October 2nd, that could shrink the magic number even more if they pull off that victory, not just by getting the 3 points, but denying Columbus those 3 points. Then, of course, they go to Toronto. And then how kind of poetic would it be to break New England's points record if they get it against New England at Chase Stadium in the finisher there?
Yeah, and that one, New England is really struggling right now. They just have not had much success. I'm sure they would be extremely fired up to come here and end the season on a positive note at Inter Miami. But on the flip side, Inter Miami will be at home against one of the teams that has really struggled. And yes, with the opportunity to perhaps break their record, which they set in 2001 with 73 points, Inter Miami could make history. I mentioned before that with 72, they automatically, with 72, clinch the supporter shield, which they could before that. But with 72, they absolutely clinch no matter what anybody else does. If everyone else wins out the rest of their games, if that happens, Miami needs 72 to beat everybody. But if that doesn't happen, Miami could clinch before. But 73 points is what New England had, and Miami could with 10 points. Miami has 64. If they get 74, they break the all-time record for points in MLS, which would be a great milestone for this team. It is something they're shooting for. What they're really shooting for is home field advantage, number one. But number two, to get supporter shield, to get the 74 points, which would break the all-time record, that would be another little feather in their cap. And also, by the way, we're going to talk about it after, but if they win supporter shield, there's also a chance that with that they could possibly make the Club World Cup next summer, which will include the likes of Real Madrid, of Chelsea, of Manchester City, Bayern Munich, Inter Milan, River Plate, Boca Juniors. We're talking about the best clubs in the world. Many of the best clubs in the world are going to be playing in this tournament in the United States. And I want to talk about that afterward. But yeah, let's talk a little about the games that are remaining. Andre, go through the games that we have left. So we've got the first game is Charlotte coming up at home.
Next, Charlotte at home on September 28th. And then, like I said before, they have the Columbus road game, then another road game against Toronto, and then that finisher against New England. But the Columbus game, it's intriguing because, like I said before, they not only by winning they get the 3, but they push them away even more. They deny Columbus the 3, so that shrinks that magic number even more, potentially to the point where they can clinch even faster the supporter shield, potentially.
Yeah, that's going to be huge. That game at Columbus is going to be a massive game. Columbus is very good. Tata has said it over and over and over. He loves the Columbus crew. He's already said that he would give Wilfred Nancy, the coach, he would already give him coach of the year, no matter what Inter Miami does. He was asked, well, I know you don't like to talk about yourself, but if your team were to win, blah, 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 and what you've done with this team, how would you feel? What would it mean to you to get coach of the year? And he said, I don't even want to have that conversation. If I were voting, this was weeks ago. He said, I would already vote Wilfred Nancy, no matter what, because that's the best team in our league. That's a team that plays like a team that came from another league, which is a little bit of a diss to MLS. But anyway, and he said, they don't even play like an MLS team and so on and so forth. So, Columbus Crew is obviously a top-notch quality team. They will be at home. They're not going to have a bunch of pink people in their stadium like other stadiums do. When the Columbus Crew plays at home, that is a true home crowd. And that'll be a very, very difficult game for Miami. Miami's had trouble with them before up there, and that would be a tough game.
Yeah, and
And
Charlotte.
then after that, Toronto. Yeah. After that, Charlotte first.
Yeah, we wanted to talk
Um,
about Charlotte because remember, can't overlook Charlotte. They're in 6th place right now in the East. This is a team that right now would have a playoff spot.
They're in the
and
playoffs,
and
right?
they travel well. They're going to come in here and they're going to have some fans that are going to be in attendance, helping, trying to support them. Be interesting to see. That's a tough one.
Yeah, Charlotte is no joke. Charlotte is not at the bottom. Charlotte is already a playoff team. You're talking about a team that is a playoff team that's trying to maybe move up, within the playoff rungs. The higher you get, the better seeding you're going to get in the playoffs. You're going to get to play an easier opponent. So they're going to be extremely motivated. They are a playoff team. They've beaten some good teams in the past. And this is going to be a tough game for Miami. Yes, it's at home, but let's look at the fact that the last 2 games are games they should have won, and instead they settled for ties. So I don't think that anything is a given. I really don't. I do think they're still also trying to get used to Messi playing on the field again. He was gone since June 1st. He had not played with this team since June 1st. The Philadelphia game looked amazing. It looked like he hadn't missed a beat. The team played great. They looked incredible. They were passing the ball wonderful. I do think here at home, which is, it will be similar to that Philly game. I believe that they're going to have the big wide field again that they love to play on. They're going to be at home. The home crowd will be there. They're all the wives and girlfriends and kids and everybody that motivates them. They also will have the weather in their favor. They've gotten used to the heat and the humidity of Miami. They're going to also have that in their favor. So I think it is, again, a game that Miami should win. Coming off 2 ties, they're going to be highly motivated to not get a tie and certainly not get a loss. They need to get 3 points and start closing that gap even more.
Definitely. And but one interesting perk, and this will transition to our last topic on the show. The Club World Cup is one of the perks if they were to either win that MLS Cup or clinch that Supporter Shield. Michelle, that I think a lot of people might not even know that this exists. I think in Miami. So how about this Club World Cup? It involves, like you said before, PSG, Real Madrid, you name it, the best of the best in the world. I guess just talk a little bit about that format and and when can fans expect it? Assuming, because obviously they have a very good chance of winning at least the Supporter Shield.
Yeah. So I wrote a story. If you want to look at MiamiHerald.com today, you will find my story that I wrote, an update about Club World Cup. Club World Cup has gone a little bit under the radar. One reason is that they've been a little bit late in rolling it out. This is a FIFA expanded club tournament. So think of Champions League plus Copa Libertadores plus the African Nations Cup plus every regional club championship all under one umbrella, Club World Cup. So it's a World Cup of club teams. So it's from all over the world, top club teams from all over the world that won their various regional championships will all come together next summer in the United States. Once again, USA hosted Copa America. They're going to host this in 2025, and then they have the World Cup with Canada and Mexico in 2026. So this tournament will be held from mid-June to mid-July. I believe it's July 15th to July 13th, June 15th to July 13th, or vice versa. But it's mid-June to mid-July 2025. There are 12 teams from Europe. There are 6 teams from South America, and then 4 each from Africa, from Asia. There's 1 from Oceania. And then Seattle Sounders has already, CONCACAF gets 4 as well. So Seattle Sounders is already in for CONCACAF from a Champions Cup. And then there are 2 spots left. It's 32 teams altogether. 30 of the 32 teams have already been determined, unbeknownst to most fans around the world. 30 of the 32 teams have already been determined. The only 2 teams left are Copa Libertadores champion and the host country, USA, is going to get 1 extra spot. It has not been announced how that spot is going to be determined. The cynic in me says that they are waiting to see if Inter Miami wins Supporter Shield. It'll be the Supporter Shield winner that will get that spot. If Inter Miami somehow doesn't win Supporter Shield, highly unlikely, but if not, and Inter Miami somehow wins MLS Cup, maybe the winner of MLS Cup will be the one that gets to enter this tournament. I think they want Messi. Who wouldn't? Who would not want Messi in his final year, potentially, of his career to play in a FIFA World Cup, especially if it's being hosted in the United States, especially if there are going to be games at Hard Rock Stadium, which we don't know for sure, but they are one of the leading candidates to be hosting games, along with other stadiums that are going to be World Cup stadiums, such as Atlanta and other cities that are going to be hosting World Cup. So if you are FIFA and you are hosting the new and improved Club World Cup, would you not want Lionel Messi and Inter Miami with Busquets, with, Alba, with maybe Suarez? I don't know. His contract is ending. He only signed a 1-year deal. Let's see if he signs for another year. But definitely they would want Messi. Whoever's broadcasting this tournament would want Messi. Everybody wants Messi to be in the 25 Club World Cup. The only way he can be in it is if Inter Miami's in it. So maybe, just maybe, that's why it hasn't been announced yet who, whether it's Supporter Shield or MLS Cup winner, is going to take that spot. Again, that's the cynic in me. I'm sure FIFA would have another answer. I'm sure that's not what they would say, but that's just what me, Michelle Kaufman, sports reporter of 37 years, is saying. Yeah. They would want Messi. If there's a way they can get Messi, they would want Messi. And if it's win Supporter Shield, then if he wins the Supporter Shield, just look for Inter Miami to be in the Club World Cup.
I think you're just saying what everyone's thinking. I don't think maybe people won't say it publicly, but why would you not want the rock stars in this thing to match against the world? I mean, it's too easy. I mean, not why. I think they find a way. As soon as they get that Supporter Shield, assuming they don't blow it, I think you find a way and you get them in there because yeah, we know what Messi equals on and off the field.
He equals everything. He equals T-shirt sales. He equals attendance.
Ratings.
He equals ratings, TV ratings, attendance, concessions, everything. I mean, the guy is a money machine. He's an ATM. He's like a pink ATM walking around. He's a money machine. And FIFA and all of the venues who would be hosting, by the way, we are expecting that Gianni Infantino, the president of FIFA, said on a conference call last week that they are expecting to name the venues by the end of September. The end of September is Monday. So they're going to be announcing sometime over the next week. We should know the venues for this tournament. And the draw is going to be in December. Like I said, they're all the, top teams from all over Europe, from all over Africa, from Asia, from the Middle East, from CONCACAF. So it's going to be quite a tournament. If all the teams show up that are supposed to be in it, if it goes off as planned, which FIFA is, basically assuring that it is going to happen, because there were some rumors that maybe they're going to have to postpone, because here we are in September, mid-September, and there hadn't been any announcements about it. There hadn't been, we know the teams that have qualified, but they had not announced venues. They had not announced how to buy tickets. There had not been any broadcast partners announced. Sponsorships had not been announced. So, it seemed like FIFA's behind, and there were some rumors and murmurs coming out of Europe, and particularly saying that there's no way they're going to be able to pull this off. They're going to have to postpone it. The other thing I want to throw in here before we close out is that there also has been talk and rumblings that some players around the world feel that there are just too many tournaments, that the calendar is just too full, and they maybe we're not in favor of a FIFA World Cup, because what it means is, for Inter Miami, that's in the middle of the season. It's not that big a deal. That's when they're in their mid-season anyway, but although they would have to probably take a break from the league. For all these other leagues that finish in late May and early June, they're losing their off season. So for the guys who were in Copa America this year, they already lost their off season this summer. Next summer, they would lose their off season again. And then the World Cup comes and they lose their off season again. So the fact that these players who are playing all year in all of these tournaments would then have to also gear up for a big tournament in June and July, and basically have a very short vacation, a very short off season to recuperate, to travel, to spend time with their families. That is shrinking and shrinking and shrinking for soccer players around the world. And some of them are getting a little bit fed up with it, to be honest. They're just seeing all of these tournaments as money grabs by the leagues, by the federations, Leagues Cup in the United States, CONCACAF Champions Cup. There's already Champions League, which is established, Libertadores, which is established, African Nations Cup. Those are tournaments that have been around a long time. But we're starting to throw into the mix these new inventions. And, there are some players around the world and players' unions that are questioning whether it's too much. What do you think? Do you think it's too much? Are we asking too much of these players?
I should just get rid of Leagues Cup. Just leave it and have this FIFA Club Cup now. That's fine. Just get rid of Leagues Cup. It's kind of like, I think it's one too many. I agree. I think it's one too many. I think it's nice to have some of these, but do you imagine like if the NBA had that play in that in season tournament? Imagine if they had like 4 of those going on, like different times in the calendar. The season would never end. These guys would be playing 365 a year almost. Yeah, it's very similar in soccer. There's always, you're expected to be in this one and that one, and then people are gonna like moan and complain all because Messi's not going to play in this one. Yeah, or make the choice. Like Messi doesn't want
to make
choices. Can you blame him? It's like, can you blame him?
Right.
So, yeah.
By the way, speaking of that, you know what we did not discuss? That Argentina has 2 World Cup qualifiers in mid-October, in October 10th and 15th. Word from Argentina, word from Argentine media friends is that the Argentine national team will be training here at Inter Miami facilities to prepare for their game at Venezuela. They have to play at Venezuela, which is a place people are a little bit afraid to travel these days. There's some question as to whether they should even be hosting the game in Venezuela with the political turmoil over there. As of now, the game is scheduled to be in Venezuela, I believe, on October 10th. And the word is that the Argentine team will be training here in South Florida at Inter Miami facilities, and then just flying to Venezuela for that game, playing the game, and then going on to Buenos Aires to play the next game after that. Right. So I don't think that it affects Inter Miami too much as far as if Messi were to play those games, but I do think they're going to be training here in South Florida, and there will be World Cup qualifiers going on in mid-October that could conflict a tiny bit with the end of the MLS regular season.
Well, the only game that looks like it could intersect somewhere in there would be the finale against New England. That's on October 19th. But
that would be past the date. Yeah.
That would be past the date.
If the game, it would be past the date. So if Messi were to play,
right,
if he were to play from the 10th and 15th, he would be back in time for the finale on the 19th.
But I bring it up only because, as we've seen before, that's wood that I'm knocking on right now. As long as nothing happens to him in that window and then comes back to Miami and, he hurt something.
SpaghettiOs, as we used to say.
Right.
SpaghettiOs.
Especially right on the cusp of the playoffs.
And then you're right on the playoffs, and he's coming off a long injury layoff. So maybe he should just stay home, train with the team so they can be around their hero, at Inter Miami facilities. They can train with him. They can get inspired by him. They can get all of the Messi aura, the GOAT aura, pack it in their suitcases and take it to Venezuela, but leave the GOAT at home for
Right.
Inter Miami to finish out these playoffs and finally win a cup.
Roll in the trucks of Mate into the and into everything. Just take that, but leave him here. Leave him here. Bubble wrap until the playoffs.
Bubble wrap until the playoffs. I agree. That's what I would do.
Yep.
I would not send him off to Argentina to play two
No.
games. I think that would be very dangerous.
Yeah, they might even have the supporter shield clinched by then, because the 5th is the second to last game. So maybe they have it wrapped up by then. The New England game is meaningless, but yeah, you protect him at that point until it gets to the playoff rounds. So we'll see. We'll see what Inter Miami's strategy is. We'll see how everything goes. Do they get the supporter shield? Well, we're way before that. We'll have the recap of the Charlotte game next week when we come back on our next episode. But again, thank you for watching Inside Inter Miami or listening to us. Remember, YouTube, MiamiHerald.com. You can watch us there, catch all of Michelle's work there. Remember, Spotify, iTunes, your favorite podcatcher, if you can only listen to us. But until next week, for Michelle Kaufman, I'm Andre Fernandez. Enjoy the games, and thank you for watching the episode.